Hello there and welcome back to Bolts for Bucks. Today I'm going to show you how to clean a bolt action hunting rifle. And I'm going to show you the way I use on a regular basis. So first and foremost, we're going to go ahead, we're going to make sure the rifle is empty so that we don't have any accidents. We're going to physically and visually inspect to make sure there is not a round in the chamber. This is empty. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the rifle into either a gun vise or a regular vise. If you use a regular vise, use plastic or leather covers so that you don't mark or damage the rifle. I'm going to make sure that my scope caps are down and on securely because I don't want any solvent or oil getting onto the lens of my scope. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wear some latex gloves here to keep my hands clean and keep any solvents or oils off of them. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a bore guide. Now there are some really nice bore guides on the market. I'll put a link for everything I use in this video in the description. Please go ahead and use those links as it does help out the channel. Slide that bore guide right in. Firmly push it in place so that it doesn't go anywhere. So now that I have that bore guide firmly in place, it's going to help prevent cleaning agent, oils, grease, grime from getting into the actual receiver area, into the action area, and just keep everything a lot cleaner. So I do advocate the use of a bore guide. First things first, I'm going to take a nice long cleaning rod here, and I suggest getting one that's of decent quality, that has a nice handle on it, that can spin freely, and a good coating, maybe something like this where it has a rubberized coating so it doesn't mark up the bore of your rifle, and of course a nice brass jig head that matches the appropriate caliber rifle you're cleaning. This is a 30 cal, so I'm going to go ahead and use a 30 cal jig head. I'm just going to put the wet patch with solvent on it down the barrel. Nice, smooth, slow, consistent motion out the end. Now you can take a Coke bottle and put it over the end of the muzzle or something to catch the solvent or patches, or you can just, you know, if you're in a basement, have them go on the floor and then pick them up later. I'm using this t-shirt to keep the stock clean here, free from oils and greases and whatnot, and also to, at the same time, clean this bore rod, this cleaning rod, as it goes in and out, so that it doesn't get a bunch of gunk on it that'll get into the barrel as well. I'm just going to take 3 wet patches and go through. Now, if it's really not dirty, you don't necessarily need 3 wet patches, maybe just 1. But I like to use about 3 to get things started here, nice and even and slow. There should be a little bit of resistance if you got the right size jig and the right size patches, which is important. Make sure you get the right size patches and jig for the caliber rifle you're shooting. So if you have a 308, it's a 30 cal patch and a 30 cal jig and a 30 cal bore brush. Now that we got some solvent in the barrel, I'm going to go ahead, put my cleaning brush on here. Now I like these nylon cleaning brushes with nylon bristles. So it's brass body to it with nylon bristles. I really like that. No risk of damaging the barrel. They do an excellent job cleaning. I do not recommend, you know, your aluminum or steel brushes. Copper's all right. I'll use a copper brush if it's extremely dirty, like really, really dirty, to get things busted loose, and then I'll go back to nylon. But for the most part, nylon's the way to go. Now you're just going to take your nylon brush, put it right on in there, go down the barrel all the way out the end, past the end of the barrel, past the muzzle, then straight back. Nice fluid straight motion. All the way in and out. You want to make sure and have the brush go all the way past the muzzle of the barrel so that when it comes back through, it isn't binding up in the barrel. You go about 15 to 20 times through the barrel, just like that. It depends a lot on how dirty it is. If it's extremely dirty, you're obviously going to brush it more. Then I'm going to take off the brush. Put back on the jig head. I'm going to run a patch with solvent on it through the barrel. And then I'm going to switch to dry patches. If you're using heavy solvents or cleaners, make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. I'm going to go ahead and run a dry patch right through here. And I'm just going to keep running dry patches through until I get zero residue on the patch. So completely 100% white. Nothing on the patch. Or very close to nothing on the patch. You know, an old rifle, you might still get a tiny bit of something on that patch just from going through the chambering area. But there you have it. Nice and clean patch coming out. And then I'm going to take a chamber cleaning brush. Now, you don't usually see these. This is a step that's often forgot about, and most people don't even know about these. But it's very important that you keep your chamber clean, so I'm going to take the chamber brush, put it down into the chamber, and then I'm going to actually rotate it side to side and back and forth in. I'm going to bust anything loose that's caught in that chamber, powder residue or what have you, and I'm just going to work it in there and clean out that chamber. Or if you don't have the appropriate size mop head for your chamber, you can take a patch, kind of wiggle it around in there on your jig, make sure you're getting in all the areas, and then run it right through out the end of your bore. Then what I like to do next is take a cotton t-shirt that's clean, getting inside all those areas up inside here in the receiver. Make sure and dry off the stock. And then what I'll do is I'll finish up with some Q-tips here, making sure I'm getting all inside the recesses for the bolts, or the lugs, excuse me, on the bolt. Make sure I'm getting every little piece out of there. If there's any patch particles left in there or whatnot, and then I'm going to clean the receiver raceways, and there you have it. Usually I'll finish it off, I'll take a dry patch and rub the crown a little bit to make sure I get the residue off the crown. Rifle. Alright, so now that I've cleaned the bore, I've cleaned the action area, I'm going to go ahead and clean the bolt. So this one happens to be a controlled round feed Winchester Model 70 bolt, and so I'm not going to tear it all apart into pieces. It's a little bit more complex than a push feed bolt, but I'm just going to take a nice brush here, a nylon brush. I'm going to dip it in some solvent, and I'm just going to brush, and I shouldn't have taken off my gloves already, but I'm just going to brush the head of the bolt. This one's already very clean, but if it wasn't, you'd brush that nice and vigorously until all the buildup came off of it. Brush the back side of the lugs on the bolt. Just clean it all up. Inspect the whole thing. Then take a t-shirt, dry it off really thoroughly. On a push feed, you would take your plastic tool here and you'd push on the end of the plunger ejector and make sure and work it to make sure there's nothing in there. Then on a Winchester Model 70, I'm going to go ahead and remove the firing pin and make sure and clean the inside of the bolt body and the coils on the firing pin, the spring. So I'm just going to push in this tab right here and hold it down as I turn counterclockwise, and it's just going to unscrew right out of the bolt body. Now this rifle is not dirty at all, but normally there might be a whole bunch of dirt and grime on this. I just take it really quickly, dry it off. Some you would oil, some you would not, depends on the rifle. And I don't mean the tip oiling, I mean down in here in the spring area. So now that I've cleaned off the bolt or the firing pin, I'm going to inspect on the inside of the bolt body in there, and it's clean, but if it wasn't, I would go ahead and spray some cleaner through there and let it dribble out. Not oil, cleaner. Then I'm going to screw the firing pin back into the bolt. And there you have it. One final inspection, make sure you clean off any gunk or residue that's on the bolt. And then we're going to put it back into the firearm. Alright, so now we've cleaned the bore, we've taken apart and cleaned the bolt, we've cleaned the action. Now, you can always go more in depth. If you have an extremely dirty rifle or if it's been out in the elements a lot, you might want to remove the barrel action from the stock, clean the underside of the receiver because water and snow and ice can get into there and cause corrosion. So probably every year or maybe every couple years, depending on the use of your rifle scene, you want to remove it from the stock really thoroughly, use Q-tips and a brush and solvent and clean every part of the underside of the receiver. Make sure your trigger is clean and that the internals aren't getting gunk in them, and then use the owner's manual specifications to dictate where you oil. You don't want to oil places that should not be oiled. I love and use this True Recoil gun oil. It's a veteran-owned company here in the United States, and they make absolutely great gun oil, so I highly recommend them. Usually what I'll do is I'll just take a little bit of this or maybe Remington oil wipes and I'll spray it onto a t-shirt and I'll just run it over the exterior metal parts of the rifle, and that just gives it a little bit of weather protection. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to hearing back from you.